In this section we cover another popular built-in shell command called alias. Now aliases allow us to symbolize or tell the shell to interpret a particular string that we put in and have it be reinterpreted as some other real command on the system. An alias can be any name that is not a reserved word or exists on your system as another command. It could even be the same command name with different options. We'll show you what we mean. It's quite easy to get used to, and it's quite useful, especially for scripts and for customizing a user's environment. Now, aliases can be applied on a global basis as well as a per-user basis. The global basis entails making changes to the etc bash rc file. This is typically where aliases and functions belong. On a user basis, the local bash rc file that's located in your user's home directory would contain the aliases. You can cat that file to see if it contains any aliases. The defaults that you see here are included, and you can specify anything differently. Now, as you can see here, the aliases are real easy to specify. You simply execute alias, which is a built-in shell command, the name of the command that you'd like the bash shell interpreter to interpret when you type in, and the command that bash in turn executes as a result of interpreting the command you typed in. So it's a substitution, it's an alias. Here are some aliases for remove, copy, and move. For remove, the I option is run. Now you don't need to memorize all the options. Simply run the command with the help option and you'll see what it does. In the case of remove, it runs in interactive, which is fine. The default is to run in interactive so that you don't blast anything away unnecessarily or inadvertently. The local alias file, once again, is the .bashrc file, which is a hidden file. It contains other options, other aliases, etc. So once again, aliases alter commands and the arguments that they accept. It even allows you to create totally undefined commands or commands that don't exist on your Linux box. And the shell in turn interprets and runs the appropriate command that you have in mind. Let's set up a few live aliases. It's quite simple. Now, to see the aliases that are currently set for the user logged into the system, simply type alias. This will show you what's set. And there are quite a few, including for copy, L, LL. LL doesn't really exist, but it runs LSL, which lists the directory with color turned on if you're on the teletype terminal. LS runs with color. Move runs with the I option. Remove, VI really runs VIM. So when you type VI, for example, it runs VIM. Another neat thing to know about aliases is that once an alias is set, even if the command truly doesn't exist on the system, and we'll show you shortly, the bash shell will expand it for you or perform tab completion. And we'll show you what we mean in a second. So let's show you how to set an alias. Now, by default, when I run ls, look at the way the directory is returned. Let's go into any other directory and you'll see what I mean. It's this ugly format which contains no details. Let's say, suppose the ideal format would be to run ls with the long option, the -l option. Well, how would we go about doing it? We simply set an alias. Since we're logged in, and this is for the current session, we're not currently interested in saving the aliases for subsequent logons, we can just run alias, define the name, ls in this case, and we'll say ls is equivalent to open single quotes, which is a way of strong quoting, and we'll simply call ls-l for the long option, close single quotes. This is the standard format for defining your aliases. Now, the command that prefixes the real command that's run, the alias that is, can be anything you dream of that equates to the real command. Let's set this alias, and now if we retype alias, you'll see that ls is set to ls-l. Now when we type ls with no options, it's listed. It takes effect immediately. No export necessary. We're now seeing the directory in long format, which includes permissions, user group, size, date stamp, you name it, date and time stamp, etc. The long format, and we could do that for any command. Let's show you what we mean also by setting an alias for another command, such as df. The df command shows us disk-free statistics, but the default is to display that information using 1K blocks. Now, unless you want to sit and translate the 1K blocks to megabytes or gigabytes, it would behoove you to set your alias based on the more friendly human-readable format. Now, most GNU commands accept the -H option for human-readable, in other words, making it much easier to read. Let's show you what we mean. If we're to set an alias for df to really run df-h, look at the difference. Instead of listing the number of blocks here, 42,654,608, human-readable returns 41 gigabytes, which is what it is approximately. But if we type df again in its normal form, it isn't aliased. And if we type alias to list the current aliases, we don't see an alias for df. So let's set an alias for df. We'll simply do alias df is equivalent to open single quotes df-h for human readable format, close single quotes, and it's set automatically. If we retype alias, you'll see that df has now been set. And now let's execute df. Now when we execute df, it returns in human readable format. It's quite a pleasure to work with. And there are many other commands that you can alter to your liking, either on a per user basis or on a global basis, depending on how you'd like to operate a system or whatever commonalities you can find across users on a given system. Let's show you how to set up an alias for a command that totally does not exist. Now, on any Linux system, you will not find a delete command like delete or delete tree. Those commands don't exist, like in a DOS environment. But let's say to make it much more portable or comfortable for DOS users or other systems users who are accustomed to different command names, you'd like to have your delete command available. Well, you set up an alias. We'll do an alias. Delete is equivalent to open single quote RM for remove. You can alternatively specify the -I option for interactive, just as you see with the other settings. That way we're careful about what we delete on the system. And then close quote. Now the delete command actually exists. If we're to simply type DELE and just tab it out, the common characters, you'll see that there's now a delete command, which never existed before. So by virtue of defining an alias by specifying the alias shell built-in command, the delete command is now available for bash to use. Of course, none of these settings are saved for subsequent logons, but nonetheless, we've illustrated that it certainly is available immediately. Now if I type delete, it really runs the remove command. But the more familiar delete, let's say for me or for the given user, comes in handy because of aliases. Aliases provides this sort of functionality. So we can easily set these commands up, and the alias will accept the very same arguments of the parent or the real command. Nothing changes other than the way you actually cross-reference the executable. And you can set aliases not only for binaries but for shell scripts as well. So if you'd like to set aliases for a given shell script, do so. Bash doesn't care, as long as when it goes to execute, it actually executes. So we have quite a few aliases set right now after testing to show you how easy it is. Let's show you how to unset some of the aliases. Let's say you want to remove some of the aliases, such as delete. Simply unalias, and you don't need to type the entire thing. You can tab it out, unalias, and the name of the alias, or the name of the parameter, in this case delete. You don't need the full qualifier to the right. Once we execute unalias delete, we can run alias again to see if delete is still aliased. And it's not. So now if we type delete, it no longer tabs out. It won't work. Try to execute, it's no longer aliased to remove. And to unset some of your other commands, just follow suit. Simply run the same command, like we have set the aliases for df, which shows us the disk-free and human-readable. Just unalias df, and it's no longer set. Type alias, it's gone. Now when we type df, it returns to blocks. It's literally that simple. And if you'd like to make scope level changes, navigate to the user's home directory, modify using your favorite editor. VI will suffice. In this case, as you know, on a Red Hat 9 system, VI is really alias to VIM, which is the improved version. VI, for example, bash RC. Navigate in, and in the aliases section, set up your aliases. And the next time you log into the system, although you could source this file on the fly and it would run, but generally the next time you log into the system, the aliases would become available for that particular user. And as you can see here, it says user-specific aliases and functions. If you'd like to make the changes for all of the users on the system, modify the etc bash RC and find the aliases section and make the changes. If it doesn't exist, just stick it somewhere, it'll work. And if you'd like to make changes for subsequently created users on the system, don't forget we have etc scale as an option. Now, how does this apply to scripting? Well, not very much, because generally scripting won't honor aliases. But perhaps in future versions of Bash that'll become a non-issue, and you'll be able to access aliases that are set. Typically aliases are available in interactive shells, as we are here. This is an interactive shell. Typically scripts execute in non-interactive shells, but nonetheless that should not prevent you from understanding the power and flexibility of using the aliases command, which is why we covered it in this section. So we'll continue looking at other things you can do with the shell before we delve into creating nifty skills.